Hello everyone and welcome back to another video with On Point Politics, and today we're going to be doing an extensive breakdown of the Senate map and what's going to happen in 2024. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you want more content just like this, and make sure to chip in to our crowd fundraising for our Michigan and Pennsylvania poll with SoCal Research. We are currently raising money to conduct this poll. We are currently doing one for Virginia, and these polls are not free. We are going to contact 750 registered voters in each of the states of Michigan and Pennsylvania to get polling data out of here, so any support will be greatly appreciated. And so, just to break down a couple of fundamentals first, we see that in 2024, Donald Trump is leading the popular vote by 5 percentage points. Me and Gold Crown Politics have Donald Trump winning the popular vote by 7.7 percentage points as of right now. And Biden's job approval rating is almost minus 20 percentage points. If we look at the 2022 midterms day, which I believe was around November 7th, we actually see that Joe Biden was only disapproved of by 12 points on this day. He had a 42% approval rating, which, by the way, it was higher than Obama's 40% approval rating during the 2010 midterms. The reason why Democrats overperformed in 2022 was because of the fact that we actually had a more college-educated base that basically slanted more Republican than Democrat, and so that's why we saw massive overperformances in the 2022 midterms for Democrats. In the 2010s, we saw Republicans performing a lot better with college-educated voters. That's why states like the Illinois Senate seat flipped towards Republicans. That's why Republicans had much better years, because the college-educated vote used to skew more Republican back then. And so that's why we're seeing such a weird overperformance for Democrats in recent Senate elections. However, right now, Donald Trump is on the ballot, and this is not like the 2012 elections or the 2018 elections, especially not like the 2018 elections. If you actually look at exit polling, we'll actually see that younger voters were actually some of the groups that were least likely to turn out that year. Anywhere from 18 to 29 years old, they were the least likely to turn out that single year. We also saw that male voters were only a 4-point win for Republicans. Female voters won for Democrats by 19. In the 2020 presidential election, Donald Trump won male voters by a way bigger amount than 4 points. Also, female voters were a smaller victory for Biden in the 2020 election. We also see right here, for example, younger voters were only 13% of the electorate, while the older voters were technically more inclined to turn out, but their victories for Republicans were much smaller than usual times usually are. Usually Republicans tend to win these groups by way bigger margins as well. And so that's why you saw a very skewed electorate in the 2018 midterms, and healthcare tended to be a much bigger issue. People with lower incomes, which were the majority of the electorate that year, tended to skew more Democrat, and older voters tended to be more Republican that year. It's actually going to be the reverse now, by the way. We even see, for example, if we look at ideology, people tended to skew more moderate that cycle as well, which was really interesting, believe it or not. So that's also something pretty surprising to look at there. And despite it being a very, very massive year for Democrats, Republicans actually gained seats because they were able to flip seats like Missouri. They were able to flip North Dakota, Indiana back into the Republican column as those seats actually trended to the right that year. And this is the problem for Democrats. The last time that these seats were up on a presidential year was with Barack Obama in states in North Dakota. The Democrat won here, for example. She was an incumbent that got elected all the way back in basically 2006, which this state tended to have more ancestrally Democrat support at the time. And the only reason why she was able to win was because Obama had the coattails to push her up. If this was an off year, she more than likely probably would have went down, believe it or not. And so we actually see here, for example, in the state of Wisconsin, we saw Baldwin won by 5, Casey won by 9, Stabenow won by 20 points, Brown by 6, Manchin by a lot. But you see here, yes, Democrats in some of these states actually did a little bit better, except for Stabenow in Michigan, and Ohio's Brown actually did better, but West Virginia was a closer victory. However, these states actually trended to the right because of the fact that despite the popular vote getting about 8 points more Democrat compared to 2012 to 2018 in the Senate, these states actually got only a few points more Democrat than they were before. And you even see this in the trend maps. This is what the partisan leaning of every single state actually looks like here. If you tie the national popular vote in 2012, this is where every single seat was actually leaning on the federal level. So for example, you see Wisconsin was only a 7-point leaning seat, Pennsylvania only 3 points. In 2018, all of the Rust Belt started leaning to the right, including a state like Michigan, which used to be a likely Democrat-leaning seat. Now we see it is a likely Republican seat, more than these two, believe it or not, actually. That's something quite interesting to point out. Maine got a little bit closer. Some of these states, like Massachusetts and Connecticut, tended to get a little bit more. But even New Jersey, that seat's been trending to the right as well. It used to be a likely Democrat seat in terms of nonpartisan leaning. Now it's a likely Republican seat, and with a large, with a third party candidate like Menendez, who is the incumbent senator running, taking away votes from the Democrat, and with Donald Trump being competitive in the state of New Jersey, that's actually going to make that race very interesting. We also see in the state of Virginia, it is now a leaning Republican seat compared to just a couple years back. It was a likely seat, so that indicates that Hung Kao may have a hard time actually winning a seat. But now we are going to get to the electoral map, and we're going to be analyzing each of these states. So for example, Utah, Wyoming, North Dakota, the special elections in Nebraska is going to be safe as of right now, including the actual seat of Nebraska, with Fisher going against that independent candidate. We actually see here, if we actually look, both of her elections were actually both safe elections, and the seat actually got more Republican in 2018. We even see here that the seat was an R plus 27 seat in the nonpartisan leaning, and we see now it's an R plus 39 seat, indicating that the state has been trending to the right on that level. We even see a state like Arizona was actually trended right by 2 points, by the way, from 2012 to 2018, despite the actual state itself getting more Democrat, by the way. So that is something very interesting to know as well. States like Tennessee are going to be in that safe Republican column. The state of Mississippi will also be in that safe Republican column. And West Virginia, in this model that I have here, is a 23-point victory for the Republican candidate there. Jim Justice is now the Republican nominee in that state. And yes, West Virginia at the time used to be a more Democrat-leaning seat, but the incumbent Senator Manchin is now dropping out of the race. We clearly see here that Manchin had very impressive victories in a state that voted really red on the presidential level. But even in a midterm where Republicans actually did worse than what they did in the popular vote in 2012, they actually only gained the Republicans gained way more points here. If it wasn't for Morsi being such a lazy candidate, they actually probably could have flipped the seat even in the 2018 midterms, which is pretty crazy to even think about. And so that is that. And we see here, states like, for example, we'll keep going here. We see states like Texas are in the likely Republican column at 11 points for Cruz. This seat was close in 2018, but polling right now, based on the modeling that is factored into it, indicates that this is not going to be a super close race. It's actually going to be a likely seat as of right now. The one that is interesting is Florida. A lot of people think this is going to be an R plus 10 seat, but I actually have it as a likely seat. It's only a R plus 5 seat as of right now. Rick Scott has had really close elections in his career. The model actually shows that if this election was held without the presidential, ballot essentially, that it would actually be a D plus 2 seat, which is really fascinating to think about. Rick Scott starts to become slowly less popular over time, but we always see him narrowly eke out elections. But the only reason why he's going to be able to pull this one out is because Donald Trump is on the top of the ticket. The model basically calculates what the results would be without the presidential ballot first. And for example, if I go to the Florida results here, we actually see that it would be a D plus 2 seat. But what I did is I basically compared the 2012 results for the Senate and the presidential results and got a correlation model going. So essentially, the presidential result is 0.4% of the Senate seats back in 2012. So when I factor in the presidential results that I have currently projected right now in my model, it basically says, okay, the Senate seat is 0.6% of the projection. The presidential result accounts for 0.4% of the rejection, and then that gets factored into the model. The next seats we're going to be looking at here is the state of Indiana, which is forecasted as an 11-point victory on my model. What's really interesting about this is that, the polling here actually shows this race only as a 10-point race. So the fact that the polling shows it as an 11-point win is pretty interesting. It's kind of aligning pretty well with the polling data. This race would actually be a tilt margin, believe it or not, which is quite fascinating to see. It's only a tilt Republican margin without the presidential ballot there. So that is something fascinating to take into account. Missouri is a 9-point victory for Hawley as of right now. This race was pretty close back in 2018, believe it or not. If we actually go over here, we'll actually see this race was about a 5.8 percentage point victory as of right now. Currently, in our projection, it's about a 9.2 percentage point victory. We also have the state of Montana, which is a 6.8 percentage point margin for Tim Sheehy. Now, this is one of these seats where they do have a Democrat incumbent in John Tester, who won by 4 points in 2018. And right now, we actually have the seat in 2012. We can actually go back to 2012. That was the 2012 result, 3.7% and then 3.6% in 2018, which basically indicates that the seat basically moved to the right, because if your seat is only moving 0.1 points to the right, while the Democrat national environment is getting 8 points more Democrat, that means the seat is trending to the right as of right now. And so I expect that trend to continue going into the cycle. And with Donald Trump being on the ballot, it's not going to really help out Tim Sheehy. And this is one of these states with Democrat incumbents where the Republican actually hasn't been, polling very abysmally, compared to other candidates. He's polling ahead in most of the new polling. So that's going to put the state in the likely column in our forecast. For the Democrat states, we have California at 20 points for Adam Schiff as of right now. Yes, we have Garvey in this race. Yes, he's popular, but he is not making that much strides in this race as of right now. We also have the state of Washington at just 13 points for Cantwell. Just to give you an idea about Cantwell, Cantwell is a big underperformer. I mean, here she won by 20 points in 2012, and in 2018, she only won by 16 points in a D+20 environment. We actually see here that the seat actually started trending more Republican. It actually trended 11 points to the right between those two elections, by the way. And if that trend continues, I will expect something pretty similar to this result as of right now. The model has it as a 13-point win. The incumbent is not polling very well against the Democrat, believe it or not, or against the Republican, believe it or not. The only reason why this seat is still in the over 10-point category is because the previous results are carrying her in the model right here. But that's basically what is showing right now. In the state of Hawaii, I expect a pretty safe victory. My forecast, I believe, has it as a 21-point win. The only reason why it's a little bit closer than usual is because Donald Trump is really pushing the state into the lower 20 points category. But right now, it is a D+21 state. We see states like Vermont are going to be safe for Bernie Sanders. I really don't see a problem. That seat's literally D+33 right now. In this scenario, New York is a +18 seat, so that's going to be safe for, that Democrat there. The Warren is probably going to win by 21 as of right now. Maryland is interesting. I'm going to get to that one in a second. Delaware right now is a 17-point win. Rhode Island we see as a 20-point victory. So similar to the 2020 results on the presidential level, Connecticut is a 13-point win in the forecast. New Jersey is a 10-point victory. Yes, the polling has had this pretty close, but I still don't think it's going to be super competitive. It can get more competitive, but I really don't see it being there just yet. And contrary to popular belief of the Maryland Senate seat being competitive, right now it's actually a 19-point victory for me. Funny enough, if this was an off year, the Democrat actually only outperforms right now by 0.1 percentage points literally only just a tiny bit better. And so unlike what the media pundits are telling you about the seat, my model does not have this race competitive. It is closer than usual, but it is not in that competitive category as of right now. Donald Trump would have to be winning the state by 10 for this to even be remotely close as of right now. In the state of Maine, we have Angus King. He's a very popular Democrat senator. However, this is going to be one of his closest election victories. My model has the state as a 9-point victory. As of right now, if we go look at his previous results, he's won by 22 points back in 2012, and in 2018 he actually won by 19 points. So despite the national environment getting more Democrat, he actually won by a lesser amount, so that's not really a good sign for him. So that seat's been trending to the right, and with Donald Trump winning the state in the federal level in my forecast, that's only going to push the seat further into the Republican category, but I still believe it's going to be a 9-point victory as of right now. In the state of New Mexico, it is a 7-point race. Now, new polling has come out of here. My model has not exactly been updated with new polling just yet. I don't like to update these too much. I try to update the polling every 2 to 3 months just because I like to wait until there's a completely new batch of polling. And this model was created less than 3 months ago. And so as of right now, the state is a D+7 seat. With an updated model, it would probably be much closer because new polling indicates that this race is relatively competitive. So that is quite exciting, but right now it is in the D+7 category as of right now, although I do have Donald Trump winning the state, so it could be closer than this. However, Donald Trump is expected to outperform Democrats on the national level and his Republican, colleagues by quite a bit. We see in the state of Ohio that basically Bernie Moreno is going to win by about 2.5 points here. Yeah, Sherrod Brown is polling really well in the state. He is polling exceptionally well in Ohio. This is one of the more competitive races out of this year. I am a little concerned for him because, again, Sherrod Brown has been polling really well here. However, polling here has been really abysmal, and the only poll we actually have out of here is a pre-debate poll, like a couple weeks before the debate, and we actually have it from Marist College. They are a very left-leaning pollster, and they have Brown up by 5. So with the left-leaning pollster in pre-debate, Brown is only up by 5 points. And you guys got to understand, Brown has done very well in previous elections. 6 points in 2012. 6.8 in 2018. However, the seat has been trending to the right. You see R+6 here. In 2018, it's actually R+13. So that seat continues to trend to the right. Trump is on the ballot, but again, Sherrod Brown is a pretty popular incumbent in the state of Ohio, and so that's why this race is still pretty close. But as of right now, it is a 2.5-point victory for Bernie Moreno in this state. Now, for Nevada, it is going to go Republican in my forecast right now. It is actually a 1.1 percentage point victory. It is barely going to Sam Brown. Now, again, Donald Trump in my forecast is winning the state of Nevada by 11 points. So I don't think people realize how much Trump needed to outperform to actually get the Republicans over the finish line in states like Nevada and Ohio. Like, I don't think people really understand how much he needs to outperform in these states to actually get them over the finish line. The reason why the media thinks that these races are actually going to go Democrat is because they are expecting Trump to win narrowly, but I have Trump winning by so much that he's actually carrying people like Bernie Moreno and, for example, Sam Brown out of Nevada to the finish line. Arizona, this is a really close race. It's a 0.8 percentage point victory for Lake. Now, again, Donald Trump is winning the state of my projection by 10.3%. I have Donald Trump winning an electoral college landslide, and even with that, Kari Lake is still narrowly winning the state of Arizona. So I feel like this year you are going to see a lot more ticket splitting with these Democrats just because we are getting more polarized. We also are going to see Donald Trump outperform the National Republican Party by quite a bit because he has kind of alienated himself in terms of personality, policy-wise, in a couple ways. And so that's why you're seeing Donald Trump outperform Republicans by 10, 20 points in some of these states. Montana is like a over 25-point victory for Donald Trump. But again, that's why I believe these Senate races are going to go the way they're going to go, because I can't see Donald Trump winning Montana by almost 30, but not take the state. Like, that doesn't make any sense for the Senate level, at least. Or even Donald Trump winning by 18 points in Ohio, but it not going Republican. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Now, I do acknowledge that these Democrat incumbents are doing pretty well. I mean, they are very popular in some of these states. And if this was a close election, I would tell you right now, Ohio would be going Democrat. Nevada would be going in the Democrat column. Arizona for sure. Even Montana at that point, I'd say would probably even be going Democrat. Like, the Democrats probably would be able to get a 50-50 Senate if this election was actually pretty close. But because Donald Trump is winning by such a large amount in the Electoral College, that's why I don't have this race very close on the Senate level. Now, in Virginia, we actually see the Hung Cow do relatively well. Donald Trump is projected to win the state, but as of right now, with current polling, the state is a 7.5 point victory as of right now in my forecast, so it is still a likely Democrat margin there. Hung Cow is a good recruit, but I don't think he's going to be able to outperform enough. Now, Minnesota is interesting because we have Amy Klobuchar. The state is almost a 15-point win for Amy Klobuchar. Now, you may say, whoa, that's a crazy margin. Why is it D plus 15? It's actually 14.7, but it's basically almost safe. The reason why is because Amy Klobuchar in 2012 won by 34 points when Obama lost the state by won the state by 9 or 10. In 2018, she won by 24. Now, the seat has actually trended to the right, so that's a good sign for Republicans, but they're not really running the most electable Republicans in the state of Minnesota. They're running really low name ID people here, and so that's why you're seeing Klobuchar win by these really big margins in some of these states. And yes, this is going to be the closest election for her in her electoral history, but I still expect her to win. I mean, it's not like she's not going to win. I still expect her to win by a pretty big margin. In the state of Michigan, I actually do expect this to be about a 4-point victory for Slotkin right now. Yes, this state has been trending to the right on the Senate federal level. Yes, that's been happening. But again, Republican candidate quality. Rogers is not the worst, but I don't think Donald Trump would have to win the state by quite a bit to get Rogers over the finish line here. So I think, unfortunately, just because in the Rust Belt, they really love their Senate candidates there, I really doubt the Republicans are going to be able to pick this off. Similar in Pennsylvania, we actually have seen polling data actually have this somewhat within 5 points, but I do have it as a 3-point victory for Bob Casey as of right now. He is a Democrat that has performed extremely well on the Senate level. We see in 2018, he won by 13 points. In 2012, he won by 9. And the seat actually went with him. It actually moved to the left as the nation moved to the left. So it didn't trend that much Republican. It was R plus 3 here. It was about R plus 6 here. So it didn't trend that much to the right. And since McCormick is a very establishment type of, Republican, Bob Casey's really popular in Pennsylvania, even with Donald Trump outperforming by quite a bit in Pennsylvania, I really doubt that McCormick is going to be able to pick it off. And unfortunately for Wisconsin, I believe Eric Hovde is going to go down in that state. Yes, Donald Trump is projected to win the state of Wisconsin in my model by 9.8 percentage points. But here's the problem with Eric Hovde there. Tammy Baldwin, regardless how you want to put it, is a very popular incumbent in the state of Wisconsin. Again, I would rather have Eric Hovde win that race any day, but a lot of these moderates in the Rust Belt, they are quote-unquote moderates. They LARP as moderates per se. And so in Wisconsin, unfortunately, I think Eric Hovde is going to go down. My model has it closer than most polling, and we actually see here, we can actually go here. I actually conducted a poll with SoCal Research. SoCal Research conducted the poll with me. He did his own methodology. I sponsored it and basically told him what to ask. And it is on 538, by the way. This poll is in the 538 aggregate. And we see that is a Baldwin plus 12 sample. We see she's up 12 points, while Donald Trump was only up by about 1 in the state. Now, I mean, if you want to say Trump is going to win by 9 and you shift this by 8 points, yeah, it has Baldwin up by 4. So this 1.5 point victory wouldn't be that off in my model, for example. And some polling has had Baldwin up 3. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, our sample size was pretty low. Higher sample sizes tend to have closer margins. You see, even a 500 sample, very similar to this one, had a result pretty much identical to ours. So, again, you see with higher sample sizes that the race is close. So that may be a good indication there. But as of right now, I mean, I really don't expect to see Eric win the race. It is competitive. It is within 2 points. So, I mean, it could go either way. But my forecast right now does not have this state going to Eric Hovde as of right now. And so that is it for this video, guys. The Republicans are at 54 Senate seats to Democrats 46. And 54 Senate seats is not that bad. Now, again, Republicans can mess this up because if they lose in Ohio, they lose in Arizona, they lose in Nevada, they will only have 51 seats. And so that's not going to be a strong enough majority for them. Now, it is extremely difficult for them to mess this up because I believe they could win the Ohio seat. Nevada and Arizona, a little bit more iffy, and I believe they're going to flip West Virginia no matter what. And Indiana, Missouri, Texas, Florida will more than likely go into the Republican column anyway, including Montana. I believe that race is becoming less and less competitive as of right now. Make sure to go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel down below. Make sure to go ahead and follow the Twitter and join the Discord server in the description down below. And make sure to go ahead and donate to our Michigan and Pennsylvania poll crowdfunding. We would greatly appreciate any support as of right now. And I will see you guys in the next video.